Good evening, afternoon, or morning, or whatever it is. I have no idea what it is. It's been a kind of a crazy week, but welcome to Photo Creative. If you're new here, you don't know what that is. My name's Mike Browne. I'm a photo trainer and speaker and photographer, and I set a challenge each month for a group of lovely people. We come here once a month to do a feedback session, say hello, and I will choose some of my favourites from that challenge. There is a link in the description below if you would like to join in. Fantastic to see you guys here. Really, really lovely. I'm a little nervous because I have got the spinning screen of death going on over to the left. If you guys can see me, just let me know in the chat, please. Hopefully everyone's okay. So, feedback. The feedback which I will give this evening is intended to be constructive and helpful for everybody within the group. I may highlight an image and say why I think it works, or perhaps coach photographer I think could use a little bit of help. Now, I can't cover every single image in one evening like this. We've got a lot of amazing pictures to try and get through. There is a new paid for feedback group which is coming online probably in December. There is a link in the description below if you'd like to be part of that, in which case you will of course be guaranteed feedback on your images. A very small group, limited number of people, plenty of time for everybody. So thank you very much, Don Johansson and Phil. You've just made some donations to keep the group going. That's fantastic, thank you. I also want to say a big thank you to a couple of members. I'm not going to shout out. No, well, yeah, Anette and a couple of others. I can't remember who. It's been a mad week. I know you contacted and said that the donations page wasn't working because it's a donation is really appreciated just to help cover costs. It is working now, and Anette, I apologise for not coming back to you. It has been kind of crazy. You guys have probably had a fair few emails from me this week because we had the new site go live, which I'm really, really pleased with. I'm sure there's a few things still need fixing in there, but it was a bit late and it overlapped with moving to a new online training centre for our courses, etc. We then had a complete catastrophe with everyone's data. If you've had a load of emails from me, I apologise. They are legit. We just had to let everyone know that we've had to rush putting this live instead of doing what we'd hoped, and that would be to give everyone a week's notice, let everyone know that in a short while everything was going to be moving. We had no alternative but to put it live immediately, unfinished, simply otherwise no one could have got access to anything. So there we go, the vagaries of working with tech. We all know that I'm a farm boy who learned how to take pictures, and I'm not good with tech. So what else can I say? Not much more really. The intentional camera movement challenge, which is what we had this time. I'm blown away by the number of entries we've had and by the amount of engagement. I honestly did not expect people to be quite so excited about this challenge. I saw a very interesting comment. I just realised I'm talking without my microphone on. I hope that will improve things. I saw a very interesting comment from someone saying all this ICM is making you go a little bit squizzy with your eyesight, and I completely agree. I've certainly had the same problem. So what more can I say? I may ask a few questions, I may give a few people a shout out as we go. If I ask a question, please put something into the comments. It would be really, really great to hear from you. Right, let's see if I can share my screen with you so that we can get stuck into some of your incredible ICM, intentional camera movement images. Intentional camera movement, what is that? It is the practice of setting a slow-ish exposure and then moving the camera during the exposure to capture a kind of a look, an artistic sort of an effect. It could be a pan blur. You could have something frozen within the frame, and as you move the camera that person stays sharp and maybe the background blurs. It could be just a simple movement of the camera to create something visually interesting. It is not an easy technique to get right, and I am not a master of it. I certainly have to work quite hard. There are usually a lot of, you know, missed shots, things that don't quite work. So absolutely 100% out of 10 for everybody for getting stuck in and giving this a go. I'm just looking at my playback here, and it looks like the quality is awful. Apologies guys if it is, I don't know what to say. It is one of those things that is beyond my control. Anyway, let's start having a look at some images. Susie Natman, you've got a lovely colourful thing going on here. I see in your comment you said you love taking ICM photos. You've got some lovely colours here, and I love the way you've done a vertical movement with the camera and got that nice sort of blurry line thing going on, but the shutter speed hasn't been so slow that you know, everything has turned into a complete mess. I'm seeing a few comments and all I've got is a wheel of death. I'm sorry to interrupt like this. Guys, just put a Y in the comments. Can you see, can you hear, are things working? Because I know there is something not working and I've been trying to fiddle with it for ages. Okay, we're getting some yeses, good. At least we know it's working for most of you. Apologies guys, when these things happen, there's nothing I can do. We've got a super fast connection going on here. Everyone says it's working well, good. Brilliant, right, I will stop worrying about that. Thank you guys. Yeah, I love the fact that the blur isn't too long, because it's really easy to kind of over blur it, and then you end up with a mishmash of different colors and blurs, and we don't quite know what it's all about. I think you've done a great job here, Susie. It's also quite hard to get an exposure spot on and correct when doing this. When I say correct, to get the exposure you want, because sometimes the shutters open quite a long time. It's easy to overexpose if you don't put a filter on to cut that exposure. It's a great exercise in practicing with using the 3 exposure controls by compensating with ISO and shutter speed in order to use the superpower that belongs to shutter speed so that you can exploit it. The superpower of shutter speed is of course movement. These settings have superpowers, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, come and check out my masterclass in photography online course. All will be revealed. You don't just set these settings for exposure, you set them for creative purposes. I don't know what to say, Susie. How can it be improved? I think it's a really great shot. The only distraction is this little piece up here in the right hand corner maybe, but hey, you know, it's so hard to get everything absolutely perfect, and I'm doing the camera club judge sort of a thing and picking holes in something when I wasn't there. I think you caught a great image, you've done it really, really well, it works, and you've got that pan nice and straight. It's easy to zigzag the camera, and then sometimes it just doesn't quite come together. What do we got here? Alan Bristo. There's something really old time about this, isn't there? There's something kind of, I don't know what it's like it reminds me of the 1800s. I think it's really quite Turner-esque. That's the word, Alan. You put it in your own comment. I like the way you've done intentional camera movement and twisted the camera on a boat which is already moving quite extensively, I would imagine, on that sea, because it looks like, you know, that water's kind of choppy. You've done a really great job there. And also right within the center, the boat itself is frozen. We can see what is going on in the middle. Yeah, so what Alan's done here is he has rotated the camera as opposed to doing, you know, an up or downward pan as Susie did. Alan has twisted it during the exposure. Another way of doing ICM. George Norcus, I just see you asked a question. How much difference is there between ICM and panning? Well, I don't know what the correct answer to that would be, other than, to my mind, you are intentionally moving the camera when you're panning, just as you're intentionally moving the camera and twisting it on a boat, as Alan has done. I mean, for me, a pan shot would be every bit as acceptable. I think it's a beautiful image. Again, the exposure's spot on. You've got a real great feeling for what the subject is. How could it be improved? I'm not entirely sure that it can. In fact, I will probably say that a lot this evening, because it's a tricky one, this. It's a tricky one. Let's just start easing up through our shots. Who's this? Alan Virgil Costache. Are we speaking French here? Alain? I'm not sure. But welcome. I don't think we've met before. This is a classic example of probably quite a difficult one to achieve, because look at that sun in the sky. It really is quite bright. I'll be interested, Alan, I don't know, how you did this one, how you did it. We've got a very small movement, which I guess it had to be because your shutter speed wasn't that long, but it's almost like we got 3 little versions of it. It's quite interesting for here. I'd love to know what you did, how you achieved it. It kind of works, but somehow something's missing. It's kind of, I think maybe because the boat in the middle is so sharp, it's kind of like it's not quite a pan blur. I know that you have put a lot of work into this, and I absolutely salute you for it, because that's what these challenges are for. They're an opportunity for you to give your photography a workout and to practice. We all have to practice. Bombshell alert, I've brought a new camera. Yeah, me, the person who never buys a new camera, and there's a reason for that, and I'm not going to tell you what it is or why at this moment, because I will do a little short video about it at some point. Hardly had a chance to touch it yet. One of our lovely members has been down here and has been showing me how to do it, because it was actually one of her cameras that I first had to go with, which induced me to buy what I have. So we're all learners. I'm a complete beginner with my new camera, and we are all learners and experts in different places. Alain, great job. Well done. Yes, good point, Jane Barnes. Please, folks, if you'd be kind enough to hit that like button, it makes a huge difference to me. It just helps to know that our videos are being promoted, and it just helps keep the group going as a whole. So please smash that like button. Hubert Steve Cole, I believe we haven't met either. Welcome and thank you for coming. A vertical lens movement of backyard trees. Got it. I think I kind of guessed they were trees from the colours, the time of year we're going into. Well, certainly in the northern hemisphere here. I like the fact that your lines are nice and straight. Nicely done there. You've got a great exposure. For me, this is one of those ones, this is just for me, it's almost like there's a little bit too much movement. There's a bit too much blur. Because it is one of those things you've got to think just a little bit, what is this? What's it about? You've got a nice straight blur, you've got a great exposure, you've got some lovely colours. Maybe see if you can try something like doing it just a fraction slowly. Hello? I don't know. Are you guys still there? Because my screen's just gone blank. Is anyone still there? You're still there. Okay. Forgive me, my screen is completely black. All I've got is a big thing saying, in fact, I'm going to show you. An error occurred. Please try again later. There you go. That's what I'm seeing on my end, so forgive me if I start getting panicky. Anyway, good to know you're still there. Yeah, maybe just try a little bit slower. Something else that can work well with these pan blurs is to hold the camera still and then move. Open the shutter, maybe move, hold it still, close the shutter. Putting a little bit of stationary, not moving the camera in the middle of a blur kind of works. So it's well worth trying, but nice one, Hubert. Thank you so much for getting stuck in. Well done for giving it a go. I am going to scroll up a bit because we always overrun, and I just want to go just that little bit further to make sure. I'm just going to try, no I'm not, it's too risky. I was going to refresh my thing over here, but I'm not going to, in case it all goes wrong. This I think is, oh, hello Anette. I think this is a great piece of intentional camera movement. Because again, you've shown us what it is we're looking at. We know that it is a bird over the ocean, and there is something so beautifully delicate with this. What have we got? Oh, hang on, we're seeing it's a bird flying over stormy water. I see. So is this ICM you've done on a painting? Interesting. Interesting. How exciting. Look at the things you can create at home. I really didn't realise that it was a painting or drawing that you had worked this with. This is a great example of creative thinking, to do a bit of ICM on a picture, on a painting. Look at the amazing things you can do just from your own home. Beautiful shot, Annette. Well done. Let's just ease up a little further. This is a very beautiful picture, Nick Smith. I love the fact we can see what's going on. Now, to me, it looks like this was a rotating blur. There's something going on here, and we can see from the lines, it's kind of wisping off to the right somehow. I'm not sure quite how well it works. Something which I think could have worked beautifully here, and I love the way you kept the reflection in the water, by the way, is possibly doing maybe a vertical blur, either up or down, doesn't really matter, and then just pausing on the house for a moment. Maybe open the shutter, pause up, so it'd be sort of like a click, open, up, click, open, up. So you just get the house a little stronger within the blur. We've got the house possibly a little too strong, but it is nonetheless an absolutely cracking image. What else have we got here? This one certainly drew my eye immediately. Hello, Sandra Sim. I think this is a really great example of doing ICM and making something really creative, and yet we still know precisely what is going on. We know it's on a beach, we know there are people. I think black and white was a really great way to work with this, and you've got just the right amount of camera movement vertically to just kind of give it that bit of blur, give it that really arty, creative look. Beautifully put together image. I think you got everything just right. Yes, there are some burnt out highlights, but you have gone for a high key look, high key bright white, and it works. It absolutely works. What more can I say? How could it be improved? I do believe there is a way it could be improved a little bit, and I'm just trying to find my grey card, which I can't. So what am I going to use? What am I going to use? I'm going to use my scruffy old phone. We're going to do the, let's try taking a little piece of this picture away. Get your hand, get a card, get your phone case or something, and just stick it in front of your eye, people. Tell me what you think. If you were to take off just the bottom and make this more of a panoramic shape, just in between those two, you know, arrows on the album thing there, give it a bit of space below the reflections, the shadows on the water. I just think we don't need quite so much of that in the foreground. What do you think, guys? More foreground, or just take a little bit off the bottom? Stick it into the comments. It's really interesting. And I'm not, yeah, good thing, Alvin, yeah, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this either. It still works, but I just think it's a little stronger. We take just a little bit off the bottom. That's all I can say about that, Sandra. But cracking picture, cracking picture. And this is so interesting. Look, Patrick likes it as it is. Some people like a bit off. Some people want to leave it alone. And that's completely fine. The great thing with photography is the only person you have to please is, of course, yourself. Look at the comments. We can see. We will never please all the people all the time. And that is one of the things, even my feedback, I'm hoping it will be constructive, but take it with a little piece of salt because it's just my opinion. Okay, I've been photographing and teaching for a very long time. I hope it is valuable. However, it is just my opinion, and if you love it, sod you, Browne. Sharon Morgan, and I know that's not your name. This is a really great, I think, example of a bit of ICM. Because we can see that there's the blur, but we've still got enough information that we know what is going on, what the picture is about. We're getting a feeling for a city, possibly, I don't know what it is in the background, whether it's an office block or a cathedral, but the fact we got someone walking towards the camera with a bicycle, I think says a lot. It's a really, really beautifully done piece of work. Again, what more can I say? It is really nicely done. Patrick Schofield. Hello, Patrick. Now here I think is an example kind of slightly opposite to one we were looking at slightly earlier, because this has got a lot of pan blur in it, and yet I think we all know what this is. We've got greenery, trees, bushes in front of a fence or something like that. I think there's a fence in there. Patrick, please correct me if I'm wrong. We've got a lot of blur in this, and going vertically with those posts or whatever they are at the bottom, that works, because had it been a blur in the other direction it wouldn't have worked, because it would have blurred the post. We wouldn't know that they were there anymore. Indeed, Nan Kelly, it is exactly like a painting. And that is, of course, the whole point with a lot of this type of technique. I think it's beautifully done. So this one has got a lot more blur in it, and I know the first autumn trees we looked at, I'd said possibly it was a little too much. Fence, got it. Thanks, Patrick. But this one kind of works, and I think it's those fence posts which anchor it, because the vertical thing still is leaving the verticals of the fence. Beautifully done. Nice piece of work. Let's just ease up a little bit more, a little bit. There's so many great pictures in here. Who we got here? Christopher Harrison. Hello, Christopher. It's a great fun shot, isn't it? The thing that draws my eye is the dog's tongue. It looks like there's a little heart been imposed onto the middle of the picture. Something like these there. So here we got a zoom blur. Christopher has changed the focal length during the exposure. So we've got a slowish exposure and a little bit of a zoom going on at the same time. And it's a great feeling. We know it's your dog. We can see that your dog is alert and happy. These things are so hard to get right. I think with the zoom blur, one of the objects is to try and get a little bit in the middle to be as sharp as possible. Maybe the eye, possibly the dog's nose, but an eye is always the best one. And the only way we can do that is to make sure that that part of the image is absolutely in the center of the composition. I don't know if you saw recent video, I think it was the last video I put onto YouTube, where I went through the photos that I shot on Cameras Don't Take Pictures when we did the seminar and London photo walk, and I tried a zoom blur on the Millennium Bridge, and I just had it in the wrong place, and there was a guy doing something crazy and I just missed him and I caught someone else's arm, and for me it just didn't quite work. It's a real hard thing to get right. Christopher, you've done a really great job, great attempt. If you like this sort of thing, try getting that eye or some part right in the middle, so there's just that one little nibbit of sharpness. I'm just going to have a quick look at this one because I just really, really like it. Karen Toy Downs. It's such a beautiful picture because of the repeating patterns. Had I not read the comment, I wouldn't necessarily have known they were flowers. I'd have had a pretty good idea they were flowers. But it works because it's a repeating pattern. It's going on across the whole thing. And I get what you're saying, flower fireworks. Beautifully done job. The other thing that works really well here is the simplicity, because we've just got really red and yellow. There's nothing else going on. I'm quite intrigued, Karen, as to how you did the movement to get that shape. I think it's really quite, I don't know, was it one of those? You know, you sort of did an M shape during the exposure. I would love to know, if you're here, Karen, please pop into the comments. Was it an M shape? I'm trying to second guess just from looking at your picture. I'll keep half an eye on the comments as we go. But that's one of the reasons I think it works. Simplicity. 2 simple colours, beautifully done. Forgive me as I'm skimming past many pictures, but what's the time? Yeah, we need to kind of keep just moving along and trying to sort of see what we can do. This I thought was a really great idea. Fiona Campbell, I really like this idea. We've got another zoom blur going on here, I believe. It looks like a zoom blur anyway, I think it is. But I love the way you had the idea to go through this sculpture and to pick up the tree on the other side. It's such a shame the sculpture wasn't just that bit wider, so it wasn't cropping the tree, but nonetheless it works. I really do think it works. Again, the exposure, you managed to get your exposure right as you did it, and look at the symmetry within the zoom. You see, nothing is wobbly. Look at these lines, they're all kind of leading in really nicely. Now I know that's kind of coming in at an angle, but it is from here too. There's nothing different. It's just that we're further away from the gap in the sculpture. Fiona's just said wherever she moved, the tree was cropped. I totally get it. I totally get it. But I think it's a great picture. It's really eye-catching. What a good idea to shoot in between something. And this is a huge part of photography. It's the creative idea. Cameras don't take pictures. We take pictures using the camera. If anyone's got a question, chuck it into the chat. I'm open to a question. I'm keeping half an eye over there. Please feel free to do that. What do we got here? Hello, Sam. You're a regular. Thank you for being here, my friend. A wooded statue of a woman made of sticks. Okay. Sam, I think, again, we probably got a little too much blur. I'm not sure. I kind of get it now I've read the comment, if that makes sense. The other thing which is, I think, causing a distraction for you here, sir, are these bright bits in the background. The picture seems to suck us towards the bright bit rather than the bit in the middle. Now, nonetheless, all that said, you have got your exposure good. You've done a really great job of you know, practicing this. The first thing I looked at, it is eye-catching because we look at it and I think, what is that? Is that an insect? Is that some sort of a creature? What is it? And now I see made of sticks, darkened by months of weather in front of a background of trees and flowers. So hard picking the right subject, but I do find those white areas a bit of a distraction, but that's all I would say. Sue just said she thought this one was really creepy. I totally agree with you. It is creepy and it's still eye-catching, Sam. I'm not saying it's a bad one at all, just giving you a bit of coaching. Got my coaching hat on. Let's just keep easing up a little bit further. Look at this. Who's this? Ah, Lorraine Etnier. I'm presuming it's you, Lorraine, unless you have someone else. You changed your name. This is a great, I think this is a great example. I love the shapes that you have used here, because obviously we've got somebody running, and the shapes you've done, the movement you've done with your camera echoes that jogging up and down running motion which goes with it, which to me makes this a really clever bit of ICM, of intentional camera movement. We're not just panning or blurring. You've really thought, hello Lorraine, you've really thought about the shape of which you want the blur to be, and it has followed. Now I notice also, I think you said you were running alongside. I'm not sure. I'm not going to stop and read it. I read too slowly. It will take ages. And if that's the case, maybe that's all part of it. but you've got a real rushy feeling. You're adding a feeling of running as well as just a pan blur of someone running. It's so unnerving having a blank screen. It's only because of your chat that I know you can still see or hear. What have we got here? Beryl Franklin. Let's have a quick look here. This has got a real painterly sort of a feeling to it, hasn't it? You've got lots of light. You couldn't do a long pan blur because you wouldn't be able to get a slow enough shutter speed unless, of course, you had something over the front of the lens, a filter or something. I like your composition here, Beryl. I like the way you included the branch of the tree. It's such a delicate balance to get right with this, between something which just looks like it's out of focus and suffering from camera shake, and something which is obviously intended to be what it is. I still like the picture. I think maybe if it was a little darker, hard to get an ICM dark. I don't know if you do post-production, maybe I'd have been tempted to make it a touch darker in post-production, but that's about all. I still think it's a nice shot, and I think having the red with the green, that works. Best friends, red and green, and that red in the middle, it certainly draws you into the picture. And a nice twig to frame it, indeed, Wendy Lamb, who is not forgetting the controversial twig in that photograph I took, and is now all over the bottom of my website. We put the twig shot in the bottom of the website on virtually every page on purpose because we know it drives some of you nuts. Cliff Seeger, what do we got going on here? Cliff, I love what you're trying to do here. I like the way you kind of brought this sideways blur in. I think those little lights though, they're drawing the eye too much, and it's a pan blur of this little cluster of brightness, and we're kind of missing that there's something going on here, the dog. It is a hard thing to get right. Well done indeed though for posting. I quite like the fact you've gone black and white, and I do like everything that's going on around the shot. It's got this misty, foggy sort of a feel to it. I just find these lights to be just a bit too distracting from everything. Not an easy thing to do, but good on you, my friend. Keep trying. This could possibly have worked if you have a go, if you get a chance, have a go in this same location and do what I'd mentioned earlier, this technique of maybe, you know, click, open the shutter with the dog or a model or a subject or a person stood there, click, and just for a moment hold that still and then go up like that. So it's like click up, rather than going click as you go up, because then you might get a little bit more detail frozen into the picture, and then the up movement sort of paints in those streaks afterwards. Like I said, it's not an easy thing to get right. Indeed, Sharon Miller, a very ghostly feel to it. Let's just keep easing up just a little bit and see what we've got here. This, Mike Davies. I was kind of fascinated by this, Mike. It really draws the eye, and I'm quite amazed, quite fascinated by what it is. If you're here, I would love you to tell us. Oh, you've got two images blended in camera using dark mode, one panned up and the other panned up with the camera turned 90 degrees. Okay, what a clever idea. So using the multiple exposure function of a camera, I think what Mikey's saying is he's got the camera this way up and then done one exposure as a vertical and then turned the camera on its side, am I correct, and then done another also as a vertical. And because you've got the two verticals, it has, because of the orientation of the camera, it's kept everything as lines, whereas if you just did one pan to the side, you would lose it. It would all turn into a blur, I think. Mike, I think it is a really great piece of thinking. Thinking like a photographer is one of the most important things. Thinking how will it look, pre-visualizing, or also just purely experimenting to find out what's going to happen, to see how something is going to work. Congratulations, Mike. Great piece of thinking, beautifully executed shot. It's just a fascinating thing because you just kind of get taken off into those little dark squares. Beautifully done. What else have we got going on here? I have to pick this one out because I love it. Sharon Miller. This one is almost like borderline camera shake, but it works. It works really, really well. I don't know what your movement was here, Sharon, whether it's just a tiny little bit of judder, whether you twisted, whether you moved. I'm not sure what you've done. It's hard to tell from this, but it, to me, just works. The colours work. It's really simple. There's not too many colours going on. There's not too much blur. The swirliness of the coffee, of the cappuccino, I think works really, really well. Hey, Sharon, a small circle movement. Okay, so I'm guessing, tell me if I'm right or wrong. So what I'm guessing is you've maybe got your cup. I've got my glass of Guinness Zero, my lovely glass of Guinness Zero. And what, you just kind of went that way a little bit. So you're kind of circling around the cup as you did it. So anyway, I can imagine. You've done it very, very well, regardless. I salute you. But these are the reasons this shot works. If you're wondering, these are the reasons it works. Simplicity and finding the appropriate movement of the camera when doing the ICM. Who's this? Amal Khan. Wow. It's a very creative image. I'm intrigued by your colours here as well. I haven't been to the Himalayas in a long time. Trekked out of trekked out of Lukla up through Namche and on to Tangwaje years ago. Fantastic experience. Something I really like about what you've got here, Amal, is it's obviously still giving the feeling of hill or mountain or something like that, despite being highly abstract in its approach. You've still captured the feeling of what is going on, what this is all about. We can see the movement. It is a sideways. We're going at that angle. You can always tell the movement from these little lines. That's why I was having a few problems earlier on looking at Sharon's picture, because I couldn't see these little lines to tell me which way she'd gone. So Amal's got that little bit of movement that way, little bit of movement that way. Now, of course, the sky has burnt out because the slow shutter speed to capture the mountains. Having been in the Himalayas, it is an area of extremely high contrast. The shadows are really dark and really cold, and the sunny areas are really bright and much warmer. It is an extraordinary place. If you get a chance to go. You will love that experience. Beautiful shot, Amal. I think it is really nicely done, and it just shows that so many different things work. Kenneth Cooler just said, made me think of water, something on a beach. I can't see because it's all messed up for me. Nicely done, sir. Here we have, where are we? We're about halfway up and we're about halfway through. We're about on track, aren't we? Rex Kersley. Hey Rex, I don't believe we've met. I find this is another one that kind of works. And it looks to me as though, if you're here, Rex, I'd love to know. It looks to me a little bit, Rex, as though you've done what we were talking about earlier, of opening the shutter, pausing a moment to let a little bit of stillness get into the sensor, and then doing the movement. Now, we're talking really, really quick here. You don't want to be hanging around too long because you'll get too much, then you will get a real camera shaky look. But again, it just works really nicely. And another reason is colour, as we were looking at earlier. We have got nice, simple colours. Red and green, pink and green, they're best mates. They work together. Also, we kind of know what's going on. We're looking at plant life. Don't know what sort of plant life, don't know what sort of thing it is, but it just kind of works. Yeah, beautifully done. And I think you've got that shutter speed. You're using the superpower of shutter speed just right. Finding the shutter speed to give the blur you want is Not necessarily an easy thing. If you're starting out with this and you're trying to figure exposures and all these things, shutter speed supplier is movement. So you would choose a shutter speed first. You would then select apertures and ISOs around that in order that you can keep that shutter speed for the movement, for the creative purposes. And you have to experiment, finding out how much how much movement a given shutter speed will be. Forgive me if I'm a bit all over the place. I've actually worked 2 18-hour days this week. It's been hectic. How's the Guinness Zero, Mike? Says Mike Davies. If you haven't tried it and you like Guinness, try it. I don't get on well with alcohol. It's why I don't drink. I rarely touch alcohol. This stuff is just delicious. And nearly 200 calories a pint less than alcohol Guinness. Right, end of plug. I'm not being sponsored. Let's get back to the photography, because you'll be complaining at me, and I don't blame you. Who's this? Dan Drummond. Dan. What a beautifully done picture. Dan, you've been around this group since the early days, and you know you are a very accomplished photographer. And what a lovely thing you've got here. What I really like about this is how Dan has caught this window, and it's still a square, and it's still in the middle, and yet managed to get a bit of ICM into it. These little colours and streaks going on around it, and that kind of warm light coming from within. I think it is pretty I really do. I think it's really, really impressive. Look out for these things, people. You know, you see a window, is there a light in there? And you know, look, also none of that is blown out. I'm not a you mustn't blow out the highlights sort of a chap, but none of that is blown out. All those colours work just really nicely together, and that intentional camera movement is just subtle enough. And I'm wondering, Dan, if you did that, you know, hold it for a moment and then move it. Hold it for a moment. We can see the movement. Look at these shapes. It was a little tiny, whoop, it was a little sort of a C shape. It was a little tiny sort of a, like that. Only a little bit, but that's what created those shapes. Beautifully done, Dan. Whoops, I didn't know it was going to do that. Never mind, we're here. Michelle Lorraine. Hello, Michelle Lorraine. Another zoom blur, intentional camera movement. Yes, that's what I did. Brilliant. Nice to see you, Dan. Beautiful piece of work. Michelle, another piece of zoom blur. Again, it's that thing with the zoom blur, trying to put something in the middle so it just gives it a focal point, something for the viewer to look at, because the middle of our zoom is kind of here. Now, if you were trying to get the actual, it looks like they're holding hands. I don't know. If it was that, that would work. If we had like in amongst the movement, the intentional movement, we had just like the hands holding, that could really, really work well. Something else that can work well with these sorts of things is, I don't know, if you get a couple to stick their foreheads together, to kiss each other or something like that, and just hold it for a moment as you do it, and you can poof in on that moment. That can work really, really well too. Michelle's just saying it was so hard to get something in focus. I totally get it. But hey, good effort. And I can see from these lines, look at the streaky lines. You kept that camera pretty steady during that blur. During that zoom. It's really easy to move the camera about all over the place. So you did a really great job there. I've just got my coach hat on, and I am being a little bit harsh. Who's this? Jos. Jos, I like this picture. But forgive me, my friend, I'm not sure I like it as an ICM. Somehow it doesn't quite, it's got this surreal look. Now this is where the subjectiveness of photography comes in. Guys, prove me wrong. Who just loves this as it is? Now I love the picture as a picture because I like those subtle tones. I like the little highlights that are going on in different places. But I think I'd prefer it if it wasn't an ICM. That's what I'm trying to say. Who likes the ICM? Who thinks it might work otherwise? This is just me, obviously. I am not saying you've done anything wrong in any way, but I just think that highlight there is so strong. And something which is interesting here is the way you've got sort of movement blur down the sides and not in other places. It's a very intriguing picture, Jos. So what do we got? Lenny says not enough ICM. Alvin says just as a picture. Hervé, hey Hervé, says it might work better just a picture. George kind of agrees. Alan says more movement. Yeah, I think you've summed it up there, Irene. For me, not an ideal ICM, but still a great picture. I love the pastel-y look to it as well, that subtle, gentle thing. I might be big and hairy, but I am a gentle sort of a chap. What else have we got here? Let's just keep easing our way up just a bit. Oh, what have we got going on here? Randy Weatherly. Tried a few times to get the transition upwards to be more even, but was never quite able to get it the way I wanted it. Excuse me. Bled Castle in Slovakia. I'm intrigued, Randy, if you're here. Because this looks to me as though you've done a stop-start. I don't know if you have, but it's almost like the shutter has opened and been held for a moment. That's this stronger, darker area. Then it's almost like you've gone stop, up, stop, up, stop, up, stop, up, like that. So you sort of stop, up. Do you get my mind? A jerky movement. And that's what's caused the ridges. Great creative thinking. I might be wrong. Randy, if you're here, please correct me. Difficult thing to get right. I still think it's kind of interesting. And if you did all that in camera, that's really pretty cool. Oh, what do we got here? Eric, good evening, sir. Now here's where I'm going to get in trouble, because where I had just said Jos's picture just felt to me like it wasn't quite great with ICM and it was very subtle. Eric has got the same sort of thing here, but I think this one really works, Eric. And I think you've done an upward, you've kind of panned in the same direction as these lines, and for me that's what it is. It's a very small movement, very small movement. And it's kind of put this pan blur onto the buildings around the edge. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, if you're here, but I think because Eric has followed the lines on this building and done the movement in the same direction, it has just held these together and just put that little bit of movement around the others. I think that's a really clever idea. I really do. To notice it and think, oh, that would work if I ... This is thinking like a photographer. Cameras don't take pictures, we take pictures. That's what it's all about. Beautiful shot, Eric. Totally love it. And everyone else who's wondering, well, why did that work? What's he doing? That is what I believe he was doing, and that is why I believe it worked. Also, look, perfect exposure. Very painterly, very subtle, very bright. Just works. Let's move on a little more. Whoop, I jumped a bit fast there. There are some really intriguing and interesting images going on within this. This immediately draws the eye. Bob Kennedy. Yeah, I absolutely looked at this a few times when I was coming through it. Again, look, Bob's got a lovely sort of a blur going on. And also, I'm pretty sure, Bob, you've done that hold it, move it thing. Because look at the face. Look at the face of the angel sculpture. It's just held in amongst the rest of it. So it's kind of like when you do a pan blur. Someone comes past on a bicycle, and if you absolutely follow them perfectly, they remain sharp and everything around them will move. It will go streaky. And this is much the same thing. Holding the camera still just for a moment, and then moving. Click, open, move. And that is why I think you've done here, Bob. If you're here, please correct me if I am wrong. However, I really think it works. What more can I say? It's one of those things. Yeah, look, lots and lots of comments. Spooky, love it. Looks like a ghost. It so looks like a ghost. I totally agree, David. Oh, right. Okay. So I analysed that. Right. Thank you, Bob. Guys, here's something else to think about when you're looking at these pictures. You know, after we've done this and I've gone through stuff, if you're a little bit puzzled by techniques, pictures tell you settings, pictures tell you actions. When you dissect someone's pictures, like we just did with this one of Bob's, when you look at it and you think about it, how did they do that? You can often figure it out for yourself, and then you can get an idea and think, I'm going to go and try that. I think they did this. Let's go and give it a go. Always really try and dissect a picture, particularly when it is something involving a technique such as this. So there you go, just a little tip there. Pictures give you settings. Settings don't give you pictures. Because when you practice that, you can also do that in your head. You see a scene, you see something, and you think, right, how do I want this to look? That is one of the first questions. Those of you who've done my 7 building blocks of photography online course will know. You and your brilliant brain, one of the very first questions you ask is, how do I want this to look? Because you're the creative force. And when you know how you want it to look, you can pretty quickly figure out where you need to stand, what focal length you need to use, what kind of settings you need to use, and all that good stuff in order to make it happen. Let's ease up a little further and see where we're going. Now, look at this. This I found intriguing. Alan, ICM City with colour. That's a lovely picture, Alan. I'm not quite sure whether I am getting ICM from this, intentional camera movement. We got a kind of a bokeh going on in the background, I guess. I find it a puzzling image, and I would love to know what you've done here, Alan, if you're here. Oh look, Sharon Morgan has just said, I'm not sure whether it's really ICM. Didn't see that, sorry. Told you I'm rubbish at reading. It is a lovely picture, no question about that. Is it ICM? I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. But I do like it as a picture. Everything's nicely exposed. Why do I like it? It's a juxtaposition. Look at the flowers. Look at the colours of these flowers. Look at these blues, and they're picking out the blues on the buildings. I love the brightness in the middle, the little highlights on these, I guess they're street lamps or something. And that just that beginning of sort of blue hour evening shot, I guess. I could be wrong. But to me, that's why it works. Is it an ICM? I couldn't say 100%. Had to go here quickly. Richard Melanie Goulding. What a great idea. What a great idea. Mount your camera in the car, go for a little drive down the street. You know, it's a great idea. Of course it's intentional camera movement. You're intentionally moving your camera whilst driving your car. I don't even have anyone in the back pressing the button, or whether you're swerving all over the place. I don't care. It's really, really great. Such a cool idea. What more can I say? Look, you can see the tripod leg sticking out here where you've got it wedged into the thing. Again, look, Richard has thought about it. Exactly. Call me mom. Lots of fun figuring it out and trying to do it. Look, here we go. Yeah, I like this too, Glenn. I think it's a really, really great idea. Go play with it some more, people, you know. I love the fact you've got the glass roof in the top, the sunroof, as well as the side windows and windscreen. That is such a wide angle lens. These are all great ideas for you to go and play with, figure out ways to do it. Now here, let me just check something. I just need to make sure there's something over here. Yeah, that's all good. Still unnerving. Thank you for the fact you're commenting, guys, because I would have no idea you were even there because my screen's blank. I think this. Who was it? Hayley Moody. Hey, Hayley Moody. Don't think we've met. I think that's such a cool idea. I really think that's a cool idea. Finding the purpose of ICM beyond just looking at impressionist work of art and trying to capture a human emotion with it. I think that is a really great idea and not an easy thing to do. You know, this is really challenging yourself, and that's what these challenges are, of course, all about. Finding ways to, I'm just throwing some ideas at you guys. You take them, you make them your own, you run with them, and you really, really work at it. I think it's a really clever idea. I find the teeth a little scary. Is it rage? I don't know, but it's still such a cool idea. And it is, of course, no matter which way you look at it, a very eye-catching image. Also, Hayley, I would congratulate your model here, because whoever it is, they put their heart and soul into it. You know, they've really gone for it here. They're not holding back. And you're not holding back in this as well. And I'm guessing you got them to move as well as the camera to get that look. Shaking with rage. That's what I'm getting. Absolutely perfect. You'll notice how most of the time I'm really talking about the thinking, the thought, the creativity. It's not just the camera. Where are we? We're at 528. I am slowly just going to sneak up. We're at the top pretty much. Then we're going to go have a look at the ones that I chose. There's just one more, which I just have to talk about. And I'm glad it was at the top, because I was thinking, I want to find it. I want to find it. And that, who's this? Rob Williers. I love this, Rob. I love it. Okay, there isn't intentional camera movement in the sense of which, you know, we're moving the camera during it. But I just love your thinking. This is thinking out the box and off the wall. Then you've gone out and created a picture to work with that thought. Intentional camera movement. The camera is at the bus stop with its bag and it's buggering off somewhere. I like the humour, but I really like the creative thinking. And do you know what? I'm sorry, Robert, but for me, the cropped off bus. Oh, why did you crop the bus off? Maybe there's something above there that's horrible. I don't know. But I just think we need less foreground and we need the whole bus stop, because that is what absolutely explains your idea, the thinking. The thinking behind it. Intentional camera movement. It's going somewhere. Absolutely brilliant. Bob Williams to piss you off. Love it, mate. Love it. If you really did cut the line off just to be irritating, to get me back for the twig, I love it. I love it. I love it. Fantastic. I love that picture. Rob, please go and shoot it again and put the sign in, because I just love it. Right. So we've come to the top. There are so many pictures we could talk about. I'm sorry if you didn't get a shout out. I'm sorry if I didn't pick on yours. As I say, I can't call on all of them. One of the reasons we're setting up let me get my screens sorted out here. One of the reasons we are sorting out the online feedback group, so that those of you who really value feedback will be able to get it properly delivered with thought in an environment where you can come back and we can get questions answered. So just before we go and have a look at the ones that I chose, I also just wanted to say I'm off to North Africa next week. One of the reasons I'm panicking, trying to get the website and the new online training centre sorted out, running workshops in Morocco, and then on to Lanzarote. You guys who are coming, I really look forward to hanging out with you. It will be a blast. Anyone who wants to come to Lanzarote, I think there's still a place left, and you've got just about enough time to get in there. Morocco way past the deadline, sorry. But anyway, there we are. So let's go take a look at the pictures which just really tickled me, I guess, and kept bringing me back time and time again this month. And the first one is this one from Chris Bagnol. I think it's a really great picture. I think it is intriguing. You know, it's an indoor, more of a studio type environment, an indoor environment. Chris, you've obviously put a fair bit of work into this. I love the shape. Look at that beautiful repeating shape from that clock or watch. And I just again would love to know how to do it. I'm going to... Nick Jeffrey, what are you doing here? I'm going to come back to you in a minute. I'm not going to interrupt this. I just love the movement, the shape. have you kind of done what we were just talking about? We've got clock, and then like open the shutter, hold it a moment. That's that top piece of clock, and then we got a zigzaggy down movement like that going on. So I'm sort of going hold it, and then like that, and then like that, and then like that, and then like that. So beautifully done, so precisely done. I absolutely think the work you put into that is really quite phenomenal. I'm probably going to come see you and get you to give me some lessons in intentional camera movement, because you're better at it than me. Most of you are, actually. The next one, which absolutely caught my eye because it made me think of a great howling wind, and this is this one from Yvonne Williams. I think it's a great piece of ICM. I'm just going to enlarge it on my other screen so I can have a closer look at it. We can see the movement. It is left to right or right to left, one or the other. And I don't know if you'll hear Yvonne, but just the very fact you've got that trunk of the tree absolutely in the middle and frozen somehow in time. I'm intrigued. I haven't read your comment. I don't know if this was a double exposure. Blue pool. Nope. But I just love the fact you've got that movement. To me, it's almost like, you know, when you see a cartoon, a drawing, when they kind of put, you know, little lines to indicate it's windy, there's gusts of wind, you know, and someone's leaning forward and they draw these little lines coming off the back. That's what I get the feeling of here. But I also just find it somewhat beautiful. Not a double exposure. Hey, Yvonne, nice to see you. Awesome. I think it's a really great piece of ICM. We absolutely know what it's about. Does anyone else get wind? You know what I mean? Does anybody else get wind from this picture? You know what I mean? Don't go there. I'm just intrigued. Does anyone else feel the wind is blowing? I don't know. I'm just going to sip on some alcohol free while I watch. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No wind. Brilliant. I'm not alone. I think you've done a really successful job and made a really, really great image there, Yvonne. Congratulations. The next one is from another long timer within the Photo Creative group, Linda O'Neill. I just feel this just kind of works again. We've got a vertical up down pan with vertical trees. That is always gonna work. But also you've got it so beautifully just right that we've even got the texture in the bark of the trees and it's still working. You're working in some beautiful light. Linda has worked in, I'm not telling Linda what she's done, Linda knows what she's done. Linda has worked in some beautiful light. I'm always talking about light and shade. Look at that closest tree. Look at the light just touching the branch and coming around it. And then we got the footpath taking us off into the forest. And you kind of want to walk down there. This, to me, is what intentional camera movement absolutely works. It's brought an emotion and a feeling. It's like a dreamy woodland, isn't it? You know, it's not just, as somebody said earlier, you know, a blur to create an artistic effect. This is almost the blur to create an emotional effect, and I think it's very hard to do that, and I think this is exceptionally well done. Nice one, Linda. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. I'm good at that, aren't I? I think we have another fabulous piece of ICM going on here from Marcus. Dresler. Sorry, Marcus, I am so tired tonight. No excuse, but what a beautiful picture. Again, we know exactly what this is all about. Instead of a dream of a forest, we got a dream of a beach, of a sea, of a wave, of an ocean. I think your composition is absolutely beautiful here. Marcus, and the way you've combined the movement of the camera with the movement of the wave and just caught it, that curl over, you know, the rip curl of the wave coming over. It's just so beautifully done. You know, any of these just belong on any wall, really, don't they? And many of the others which are not in this final few, trust me. But I think that is just such a beautiful piece of ICM. It is such a lovely picture, and the way you have got that dark wave framed perfectly top and bottom with the brighter water, which is just being kissed with those sunsetty colours. You know, I can imagine waking up, you know, those times you wake up in the night or whatever and you think, oh, I've just been dreaming about a wave or the beach. That's how I feel about certainly both of these last two shots. Beautifully done. And so our next one is coming in from, if I can make my computer work. I can't. No, I can. Sorry, it's because I can't read it on my screen. It's too small, and also I can't see things on the other one. Kim Skirton. I so get what's going on here. Yeah, I know, Kim, you've had a bit of attention 2 things in a row, and I try not to, but I've got to be authentic to myself, and this totally got me. I think it's a great piece of ICM, but also you've caught that feeling of a gaggle of gulls all squabbling. If I shut up for a minute and you look at this picture, can you hear them too? I can. I don't know about anyone else. We've got a subtle bit of camera movement, intentional camera movement, and we've also got that little bit of movement from the birds themselves. Look at that wing, or the one that's up in the air, like the double wing where it's gone flip-flap. I just think it's such a great thing. It is an absolute seagulls in a dream, and nothing is burnt out. The exposure is perfect. It's got that lovely, soft, subtle, pastel-y thing. Agreed, Steve Bagnol. So many we could see on a wall. Beautifully done, everybody. Thank you, Nick Jeffrey. That is really kind of you. I just want to say something before we go on to the next one. You may have seen Nick Jeffrey in a video which I made many years ago, where we were balancing Coke cans in the kitchen and putting oil in water and coloured bits of paper under a piece of glass that he took out of a picture frame. That is our friend Nick Jeffrey, who has been on several workshops and things like that. You've been around. I think you were the first person ever to buy one of my ebooks back in the day. So it's really great to see you here, Nick. I'm sorry, everyone. I just had to give Nick a quick shout out there, because I haven't seen you in Photo Creative, I don't think, or if you have, not for a long time. I'm getting old. I forget things. Good to see you, buddy. And finally, the one which just really got to me, and bizarrely must have been taken local to where I live, from Irfan Thomas. I think we have another beautifully dreamy image here of sunset in the New Forest. Look at those colours. It's almost like the brackens under the trees are on fire. It's just the right amount of magic with the shutter speed. It is just the right amount to capture the movement, the feeling, the dreaminess, but still maintain the knowledge of what it is that we are looking at. Again, another one, it just belongs in a picture frame. I'm just repeating myself over and over again. I know it. But, you know, guys, if you want to practice with the ICM, and I really should be, there's some great inspiration in this album. And as I said before, I was kind of surprised that you all took to it as much as you did. Totally salute you all for that. That was not an easy challenge. So, thank you for being here. The next challenge is actually already on the website. I don't know who noticed that. The next challenge is already on the website. because again something broke in the back end and all this camozzle we've had with getting the website and the new training centre sorted out, we had to run a full site update across the website, which meant it went live. Another little thing I'm just going to say is we will always put the chosen pick of the month on the masthead in the group on Facebook. Probably not going to put it on the website in future, but nonetheless the challenge went live a bit early. Some of you may know what it is already. If not, I'm going to put a link to it in the in our group very shortly. Other than that, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you haven't hit that like button already, please do it, because it really helps out. And oh, just finally, I want to show you one last time what I'm just going to show you. Right, that's what my screen looks like when I'm running these live broadcasts. But look, I haven't been able to see what you guys are doing at all evening. I've still got this error message. So you guys have been my lifeline tonight. You have absolutely helped out by keeping it all moving. I'm waffling. I'm tired. I'm going to go get some dinner and go to bed. And I think you guys should do the same. Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. And I really look forward to seeing you all again very soon. And those of you who are coming to Morocco and Lanzarote and Iceland fairly soon as well, I look forward to seeing you there. Be well, take care, until next time.